Amari Cooper's first catch as a member of the Buffalo Bills goes for 6 and a touchdown, part of a 34-10 win. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast, everyone.
And I'm Andy Young out at Highmark Stadium, where the Bills overcame a 10-0 deficit with 34 unanswered points. All eyes were on Amari Cooper, had a drop to start the game, but it was smooth sailing after that. Once the Bills got cooking, boy, that offense, everybody was eating, and it looked nice.
This, Andy, is the definition, I think, of everybody eating when you look at the stat line for this game, which was pretty impressive. You have 4 guys with over 50 yards receiving, a couple of different guys grabbing touchdowns. The running backs were involved in the passing game as well, Andy. And again, we just need the Bills to come out like they want to play at the beginning of games and not have to keep pulling off these comebacks. But it does show a lot that they are able to do it. But I think Amari Cooper is indeed the story of this one. 4 days, limited playbook knowledge. He said during the post-game press conference, after this entire week of hearing we're not sure if Cooper's going to play, that he was told when the trade was made that you were going to play against the Titans coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the Bills certainly have their new number one receiver, and he's a guy who is cerebral. He's smart. He's a great route runner. He sets people up well, and you could see that through the course of this game. I pegged him at about 17 snaps in this game offensively, given a couple of other plays that were defensive penalties or offensive penalties that negated the play. So he was out there between 17 and 20 snaps, comes away with 4 catches, 66 yards, a touchdown. You saw some of his capabilities both on the sidelines, on slant routes. I liked what he said about that touchdown with Josh Allen, that the two didn't really get to practice that throughout the week, and that he runs slant routes maybe a little bit differently than other players in the league do, and he talked to Josh Allen about that, and the two were able to get on the same page just from talking. Imagine what it's going to be like when they get a few weeks of practice under their belts. And you could see in this game, Cooper's presence kind of opened things up a little bit. Yeah, the Titans' defense is good, but a little undermanned. Cooper was able to do some things that certainly opened things up for Keon Coleman, Shakir, and others as well. Of course, you like to see them get off to a better start. I mean, 3 3-and-outs to begin the game against the Tennessee Titans, falling in a 10-0 hole, just not acceptable. You can't have that. Joe Brady's got to get that figured out. But kudos to that staff on both sides of the ball, but Brady especially, on getting things figured out through the second quarter and then in halftime adjustments as well, and really steamrolling the Titans from there. That's an impressive thing. That's an important thing. You just love to see them get off to better starts to where they don't have to have double-digit comebacks against a 1-4 team.
Yeah, it's starting to get tiresome, Andy, watching the Bills come out so flat nearly every game. I mean, this was the Bills' first home game in nearly a month. You thought that they'd come out charged up. You got Amari Cooper there now. It wasn't there on both sides of the ball, but it got there. We talk about Cooper, Andy, and that trickle-down effect he's having on the offense, even with just one game in. Keon Coleman, his first 100-yard receiving game in the NFL, 125 yards, had a touchdown called back that many think should have been a touchdown. Looked like he had control and 3 feet down. Coleman, 66 yards and a touchdown. Shakir, 65 yards. Dalton Kincaid, 52. Ty Johnson with a touchdown in this one. James Cook, Andy. Ray Davis. The whole thing, once they got the ball rolling, seemed like it started to in the second half look like, okay, this was the plan all along. But like you said, we talk about scripting plays to start a game. Whatever that script was Joe Brady wrote, he should throw it in the trash and light it on fire, because I don't know what the heck that was. It looked like, first of all, they received the ball to start the game, which led you to believe, okay, there's a plan in place to just cram this ball down the field and get in the end zone. You go run, pass, punt. Later on, run, pass, punt, run, pass, punt. And then you're off that script and into another world, and that's where things started to get better. It stunk from the get-go of this one, but again, the Bills have the tools in place to overcome a crappy start.
blame it on Amari Cooper. He drops that very first third down on the very first possession of the game, and that seemed to have them set back a little bit. Yeah, I mean, Brady's got to get that figured out to where they get off to better starts. I mean, it's not every week, but it's a lot of weeks where they struggle coming out of the gates. I think this was the first time they had gone 3 and out on back-to-back possessions to start a game all season and didn't score at all. So, I mean, you got to be better there. But once they got that cooking, and we're having these everybody eats metaphors all season, this is kind of like that Thanksgiving dinner that they pulled out the turkey and it wasn't quite up to temperature yet, so they had to stick it back in the oven for a little bit longer, and then everybody's waiting, and oh my God, we're trying to eat this turkey dinner. By the second quarter, third quarter, that turkey's ready to roll, and it was a feast after that. And this is exactly what the Bills are kind of talking about when the offense does get rolling. You got a guy over 125 yards, and Coleman making big plays, a 44-yard catch, a 57-yard catch, a near touchdown one-handed in the corner of the end zone that was called back. But this is exactly what you're looking for. And then you get Shakir rolling underneath, playing his pinball game that he does inside, making big plays. Kincaid got rolling a bit. He didn't have huge numbers in this game, Dalton Kincaid. However, a couple of really big catches. You saw the one down near the end zone in the second half, and then you also saw one earlier on along the sidelines for a first down. So this is more like it, right? Yeah, you can throw out everybody eats and all that sort of stuff, but the addition of Cooper kind of slots everybody into more comfortable roles. You can see Josh Allen already looks for him on big third downs. You need a guy. This is what they were missing. Third down, and it happened, I believe, in the third or fourth quarter. Third down, you need a first down. The Titans are in man coverage. They're blitzing. You need a guy on the outside who can win that matchup. And he did. He got inside of his guy, made a nice catch on a throw from Josh Allen that was a little bit behind him, and Cooper makes that play. And that just kind of opens things up for everybody else. And I think Keon Coleman said it great in a tweet that I put out last week that went viral. Coleman told me it's like having somebody move into your house with some money, and he can help pay for everything, and he can help in that process of making the household right. And I think Keon Coleman, in his youthful ways, was proven right in the way he made that sound.
Now, I don't know if this has much to do with Amari Cooper being there, but I have down in my notes here, and this was later in the game, they started to work Khalil Shakir, Andy, in that screen game, in a wide receiver screen that actually worked for the Bills. This has been a pet peeve of mine since last season, that they keep going to this well and either losing yards or gaining 1 yard. But with Shakir in that role, they actually moved the ball down the field. Shakir's long was a 20-yarder. I think that was off one of those quick wide receiver screens that he just got behind the lineman and just did his thing. And Andy, my God, it's amazing watching how shifty Khalil Shakir can be and just moving through these linemen. And I think having Amari Cooper out there and now Keon Coleman making a statement is really going to help Shakir in this shorter slot type of role.
Yeah, they threw a lot of those to Diggs last season because they didn't really have a yards after catch guy that they trusted. And then they've been throwing him to Curtis Samuel this season, and that, for whatever reason, has not clicked. Samuel, of course, gets injured in this game with a shoulder injury and didn't come back. So that's something to keep an eye on. But he hadn't done much throughout the course of this season at all.
Right.
Anyways, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a disaster if he's out, but you don't want to have any of your weapons out, and you got to bring up somebody from the practice squad if he's out any considerable time. But to your point, Shakir does really well in those situations, yards after catch. He's kind of like a pinball. He plays a little bit like a running back in there. He jukes and jives and makes guys miss and bounces off people. So, I mean, if you've got a guy that can open that up in Amari Cooper to allow some of those things to happen underneath, that's fantastic.
Josh Allen, 100 career NFL starts, now in the books. Did not look great off the start of this, like we said. But, Andy, 323 yards, 2 touchdowns, and that 0 remains with Josh Allen, now 7 games into the season as the Bills sit at 5-2. You look at that column for INT, still with a goose egg.
Yeah, just a couple of fumbles as far as lost turnovers. So that's really good for him. Not a great start for him. Not a great start for the offense or defense as a whole. I mean, he started the game 4 of 11, I think, for like 60 yards or so. After that, he's 17 of 22, 260 some yards, and 2 touchdowns, 116 quarterback rating, passer rating. That was a fantastic performance. He didn't have to run the ball a ton, didn't put his body in harm's way, got hit a couple of times, but nothing that strikes fear in the hearts of Bills Mafia. That was a Josh Allen performance. Complete command once the offense got cooking, kind of just distributing to different players, hitting Coleman for big plays, finding Cooper when it's necessary, Shakir. That's the look of an offense that can be really effective. Look at what that looks like. When you have Josh Allen, and in the first half, they amount to 90 total yards. In the second half, they go for 300 more, end up with 390, and put up 34 points. I mean, what a tale of two halves, and that's the exact kind of blueprint that you want from this Bills offense. You just don't want to deal with what they did through the first quarter and a half or so.
Half those yards in that first half was one play to Keon Coleman
That's
as
right.
well, So, I mean, that's really wild with this. And then Ray Davis continues to look good. I mean, no James Cook last week. Ray Davis looked good against the Jets. James Cook comes in early. He gets 32 yards and a touchdown. Ray Davis, 41 yards and a touchdown. Ty Johnson in the mix, too. His touchdown was receiving. But those three guys back there are all pitching in to really complement the pass catchers and Josh Allen in this offense.
I mean, they didn't rush great as far as cumulative totals. I mean, you look at Cook's numbers 12 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. It's only 2.7 yards per carry. Davis came in and was much more effective 5 carries, 41 yards. That's 8 yards a carry plus the touchdown. Now, some of that was the Bills had opened up the offense and started passing the ball when they got Davis going a little bit more.
Right.
And then they're able to smash the Titans in the mouth. So is that chicken or the egg, right? Was Davis just generally better, or was it because at that point in the game the Titans are on their heels? Probably a little of both. But to have those guys get going a little bit, I mean, it's only 73 yards, but to have that X factor in those two guys, plus Ty Johnson, who's their best and most trusted in pass protection on obvious passing and third down situations, and be able to catch the ball too. I mean, that's a scary offense, right? And I think Khalil Shakir said it after the game, like, we can be scary if that's the way we play and that's the guys we have with Cooper now in the fold. That could be a really dangerous offense. I mean, let's not forget, you still have Josh Allen, who might damn well be the MVP of the league, and we're barely talking about his day.
Yeah. And I mean, let's give the Titans a little bit of credit. Their run defense is good and was good in this, and forced the Bills' hand as this game went on. And by doing that, like you said, Josh Allen ends up taking over. And it kind of, I don't want to say backfired against the Tennessee Titans, but, stuffing the run like that just forced it to be Josh Allen had to move the ball through the air, and it worked.
Yeah, I mean, this Titans defense is really good. One of the top 5 units in the league coming in. They were beat up a little bit. L'Jarius Sneed, their top corner, was out. He's kind of struggled this season, surprisingly, but still a good player. So you don't want to run the ball and smash it into the face of Jeffrey Simmons and that defensive front. They have a really good line, to your point, and it's a team that has caused the Bills some problems over the years up front, different coaching staff and some different characters, but in general, that was a pretty good defense. So, maybe the way to win was to pass the ball, and they started out trying to assert their will in the running game. That goes back to your point about Brady maybe throwing out the script, because it was it was run, pass, run, pass, run, pass. That didn't quite work out. So once they got away from that and realized that they had some advantages in the passing game and got to figure out exactly what the Titans are doing, they had the advantage. This Bills team is strange in that a lot of games it feels like they're kind of slow playing it because they know they can make the adjustments and things like that. So they're just trying to figure out what another team is doing. Sometimes things take them off guard, and it takes that halftime adjustment or that in course of game adjustment to get things figured out and right the ship. Against good teams, you might get your doors blown off like you did against the Ravens, right? And then Obviously, you fall in a hole against the Texans too and claw your way back. But you got to get that figured out and get off to better starts. But what we saw later in the game, certainly promising, and should have Bills Mafia feeling pretty good about what this team can be when Brady's calling the right buttons and when Allen and everybody else are cooking.
Right, just get there earlier in
Right.
games. We saw some of the same issues with the Bills defense early too, unable to get off the field on third down. Screenplays being very effective. The Titans using their tight ends seemingly at will at points in this game, but then the defense buckles down. Titans with only one drive for a touchdown, Andy, ended up knocking on the door. Tony Pollard gets injured. Julius Chestnut comes in, Andy, from Sacred Heart University, where I played football, Andy. I think he's the only former Sacred Heart guy to actually have a role in the NFL at this point. But and then ultimately they end up getting the touchdown on that drive there. But the rest of the way, the Bills defense were getting after Mason Rudolph throughout the day. We're able to get A.J. Epinesa forces that big fumble. That fourth down stop, Andy, to start the second half completely flipped the script, and the defense was in control after that and was allowing the offense to do what they needed. But that was it right there. You give the Titans the ball to start the second half. They try to go for it on fourth and short. They stuff them right there, and there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that was absolutely huge. That was certainly a key turning point in this game. And shout out to the defense. Shout out to Bobby Babich for getting things figured out. I mean, misdirection and screens, that seems to beat this team fairly often. And part of the reason I think that is because this is a fast, downhill sort of defensive line and linebacker group. And so that, somebody clears a space out and your defensive lineman can go charging in, that's great. Or maybe a guy like Dorian Williams or whomever it might be out there, they're so fierce and fast to get to the football because that's the kind of defense that they are. They can be thrown off if they don't read their keys right, and there's play fakes or misdirection. So that's something I think the Bills tend to get figured out a little bit more, but you saw the Ravens really do that to them to death in that game. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on. Terrell Bernard had another fantastic game in this one. That's a big blow if he's hurt, if he's out again for any extended period of time, because he was flying all over the football field in this game and obviously had the fumble recovery. If his ankle is sprained or he's out for a few weeks, that could be trouble for them because he really has been the key cog and, to my mind, the best player on their defense outside of maybe a Christian Benford and occasionally a couple of guys on the defensive line all season long.
Taron Johnson, too. Andy.
Taron Johnson, too. He's awesome. So we kind of take him for granted.
Right.
Man?
Right. And then DeMar Hamlin, I don't want to say this locked up the game in any way. Second interception of the season. Again, you're going against Mason Rudolph, and I said this going in, that although the Bills handled the Steelers last year in the playoffs pretty easily, Mason Rudolph has been able to move the ball at times against the Bills' defense. 215 yards, that one touchdown, but that one interception to DeMar Hamlin. And Gregory Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa were giving him a beating throughout the afternoon.
Yeah, first piece of a sack for Rousseau since that 3-sack output in week one. Got to get more of him consistently, but it was good to see him getting after the passer again. I think the Titans' right tackle went out of the game, so they were hurting there a little bit, and the Bills took advantage. 12 of 15 at one point for 155 yards were Mason Rudolph and the Titans at the half. And then I think they only allowed him like 60 yards after that and really shut him down. So kudos again to Bobby Babich and the defensive staff. McDermott's involved in that as well, and the players for making the adjustments and making some plays. Hamlin made a nice play. I mean, Christian Benford, for the most part, has been really rock solid all season long. You saw Douglas almost come away with a couple of interceptions. So, I mean, a nice job for this Bills defense against an offense that you wouldn't expect to tear you up. But they do have Calvin Ridley, and they do have DeAndre Hopkins and Tyler Boyd. And it just took some time to get that thing figured out. You'd like to see them also not allow someone like the Titans with a backup quarterback in to march right down the field early on. But hey, they made the big plays. The fourth down stop, the interception. A.J. Epinesa demolished Rudolph on that strip sack that they ended up recovering, but it really set that drive back. So good on the defense for getting things figured out against a team they should have taken advantage of.
Before we head out, Tyler Bass fighting for his
Yep.
job. Crowd gave him the love, Andy. Got behind him in this one.
Yeah, when he came out for that first field goal attempt, we all kind of took note in the press box. The crowd rose up and gave him a nice round of applause. I think last week when he spoke to several media members and said, look, it's on me, and I've been struggling and I've got to get better. They sign a practice squad kicker. Brandon Beane basically said, hey, the heat's on you, buddy. If you're not consistent enough, we're going to move on. And, he was a man and he stood up and he took that and he talked to the media. I think fans appreciate that. It's been a struggle, and a lot of people have said, hey, since last season when he missed the kick against the Chiefs and then his struggles throughout training camp, the preseason, and into the regular season, that this guy's got to go. But, the faithful here gave him some confidence. Coach gave him some confidence. He made several kicks in this game. Nothing really pressure, nothing really long. But just to have some go through was huge for him. And to hear the fans give the guy some confidence, I think that's a good thing. We talked about it in the post-game show on TV that, kicking's kind of like golf, right? If you don't feel confident in what you're doing, your swing, your leg is kind of like a golf club, you're going to struggle. So, get that guy back in the right headspace would be huge. We know he has the physical talent. That's a real mental game and just being in the right place and making it happen.
You're going to have to talk to me about mentally struggling golfing.
Hey, you beat our buddy John Scott the other day, though.
I
back
did,
nine.
I did beat John on the back nine, and that's all that
Right.
really matters
Yes.
at the end.
I beat both of you on the front and back quite handily. I'll just put that out there.
With a 90.
That's not saying a lot. The bar is pretty darn low when we get together.
Bills' trip home, short-lived. They're back on the road coming up, heading out to Seattle, take on a Seahawks team, Andy, that's doing pretty well themselves this year. So we'll be back at it as we get you ready for the Seahawks coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's a tough team out there going out west. The time change, the whole deal is challenging. And Geno Smith and that team, with Jackson Smith and Jigba, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker has been really good as a running back for them. They're using him in the passing game now as well. Crowd out there is always really loud. It's going to be a tough battle for that team. I think they smoked the Falcons today as we're recording here on Sunday, so they'll have their hands full.
Yeah, I was looking for them on here. I can't find them, and I'm going to give up because we're going to wrap this one up, Andy. I'm about to have a coughing fit. For Andy Young, I'm Kevin Carroll. As always, thanks for tuning in, everyone.